Tensions rise as the Iran conflict escalates, with fatalities increasing dramatically. Meanwhile, Sudan's civil war enters a critical phase affecting millions. Here are today's top 10 stories you need to know. In a shocking update, Iran's forensic chief announced that over 3,375 people have died amid the ongoing war with Israel and the United States. This conflict, which escalated earlier this year following a series of military skirmishes, has led to widespread devastation across the region. The Iranian military is mobilizing additional forces, which only intensifies an already volatile situation marked by airstrikes and ground assaults. The humanitarian impact of this war extends beyond immediate casualties, with thousands more displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in overcrowded shelters. Critical infrastructure, including hospitals and schools, has been heavily damaged, exacerbating the crisis. International reactions have poured in, with numerous countries expressing grave concern over the unfolding humanitarian disaster. The Iranian populace faces dire shortages of essentials, including food, clean water, and medical supplies, creating an urgent need for assistance. As the conflict continues, the potential for broader regional instability looms large, threatening to involve neighboring countries. While negotiations are reportedly ongoing, with a second round of talks planned in Pakistan to seek a resolution, skepticism remains regarding the prospects for peace. Hardline factions within Iran may resist any compromise. The upcoming discussions will be pivotal in determining whether a sustainable ceasefire can be achieved or if the violence will escalate further. The ongoing civil war in Sudan has entered its fourth year, with no signs of resolution in sight. This brutal conflict, primarily between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, has escalated into one of the region's most devastating humanitarian crises. Millions are affected, with reports indicating staggering loss of life and displacement that is unprecedented in recent history. Humanitarian organizations face enormous challenges in delivering aid, as access to the most affected areas remains severely restricted. The international community has repeatedly urged for a ceasefire and called for negotiations to end the violence, yet the entrenched positions of both warring factions complicate these efforts. Civilians continue to suffer immensely, grappling with extreme food shortages and rampant insecurity. The situation is exacerbated by soaring inflation and rising unemployment, further destabilizing the nation. As Sudan grapples with this turmoil, neighboring countries are preparing for a potential influx of refugees, which could strain their resources. Analysts warn that unless decisive and coordinated action is taken by both local leaders and international stakeholders, the conflict could spiral further out of control. Immediate diplomatic efforts are crucial to pave the way for a sustainable resolution and restore peace in Sudan. Severe wildfires have erupted across Georgia and Florida, forcing thousands to evacuate their homes. These wildfires, fueled by prolonged dry conditions and high winds, have spread rapidly, leading to extensive property damage and threatening entire communities. The National Weather Service has issued red flag warnings, signaling an increased risk of fire spread due to the combination of low humidity and gusty winds. Emergency services are on high alert, as residents are urged to evacuate to ensure their safety. Firefighters are battling multiple blazes, utilizing air support to combat the flames from above, while local authorities coordinate with state and federal agencies to manage the crisis effectively. The economic impact is already being felt, as businesses in affected areas face closures and significant losses. Environmentalists express concern over the long-term effects on wildlife habitats and air quality, which could take years to recover. As the battle against the flames continues, meteorologists are closely monitoring conditions, hoping for rain to alleviate the crisis. In the coming days, officials will assess the damage and strategize recovery efforts, focusing on rebuilding and restoring affected communities. Global markets are experiencing significant turmoil as investors react to rising geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainties. Stock indices have shown volatility, with many analysts predicting a downer. Key sectors, including technology and energy, are feeling the pressure as companies adjust to a shifting landscape. Central banks are faced with tough decisions as inflation rates remain high, complicating monetary policy. Analysts warn that prolonged instability could lead to a recession, impacting global trade and investments. As markets react to these developments, consumers are advised to remain cautious. Companies are adjusting their forecasts in light of these economic realities, and layoffs are expected in several industries. The interconnectedness of global economies means that challenges in one region can have ripple effects worldwide. As analysts continue to monitor the situation, the potential for recovery hinges on diplomatic resolutions to current conflicts. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining the trajectory of the global economy. New reports on climate change have been released, underscoring the urgent need for decisive action as global temperatures continue to escalate. The data reveals alarming trends regarding extreme weather events, which are becoming increasingly frequent and severe. Coastal cities, home to millions, are particularly vulnerable, facing existential threats from rising sea levels and intensified storms. Environmental experts urgently call for comprehensive policy changes to mitigate these risks, arguing that the economic consequences of inaction could be catastrophic, affecting agriculture, infrastructure, and public health. Furthermore, the reports emphasize the necessity of international cooperation to tackle these pressing environmental challenges. As nations gear up for upcoming climate summits, pressure mounts for leaders to prioritize sustainable practices and innovative solutions. The scientific community encourages individuals and organizations to implement tangible steps toward reducing their carbon footprints. Educational initiatives are being launched worldwide to raise awareness about the multifaceted impacts of climate change. The next steps will be crucial in determining whether humanity can effectively respond to this pressing crisis, with a focus on sustainable development and resilience-building strategies. Tensions are escalating in Eastern Europe as military exercises near the borders of conflict-prone nations raise alarms. Recent reports indicate significant troop movements and artillery deployments, stirring fears of a potential escalation into open conflict. This surge in military activity follows a series of diplomatic failures, with ongoing disputes over territorial integrity and influence exacerbating the situation. Countries in the region, including Ukraine and Belarus, are on high alert as diplomatic channels become increasingly strained. NATO has called for restraint and dialogue to prevent misunderstandings that could lead to conflict. Analysts emphasize the importance of de-escalation, warning that miscalculations could have dire consequences. The international community is urged to intervene and facilitate negotiations aimed at addressing underlying issues, such as energy security and national sovereignty. As regional stability hangs in the balance, the possibility of a diplomatic resolution remains uncertain. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether peace can be maintained or if tensions will escalate further. A healthcare crisis is unfolding in several South American countries, exacerbated by economic challenges and political instability. Hospitals are overwhelmed with patients, and shortages of medical supplies are rampant. Health officials warn that the situation could worsen if immediate action is not taken. Governments are facing mounting pressure to address the crisis, which has led to protests in various cities. The lack of access to essential healthcare services is impacting vulnerable populations the hardest. International aid organizations are stepping in to provide support, but resources are limited. Countries are being urged to prioritize healthcare funding and invest in infrastructure improvements. As the crisis deepens, the potential for a public health emergency looms. The response from governments will be critical in determining the future of healthcare in the region. Collaborative efforts are needed to rebuild trust and ensure that healthcare systems can withstand future challenges. Rising sea levels pose a significant threat to coastal areas worldwide, with recent studies indicating alarming rates of increase. Scientists warn that many cities could be submerged within decades if current trends continue. Coastal communities are urged to implement mitigation strategies to combat this impending crisis. Infrastructure investments and sustainable urban planning are crucial to enhance resilience. Governments are beginning to develop comprehensive plans to address potential flooding and land loss. Additionally, public awareness campaigns are being launched to educate residents about the risks. The economic implications of inaction could be significant, affecting tourism, real estate, and local economies. Coastal ecosystems are also at risk, with wildlife habitats threatened by changing landscapes. As sea levels continue to rise, the urgency for collective action grows. The next steps will involve collaboration among governments, scientists, and communities to develop effective solutions. Food insecurity is rapidly escalating in various regions around the world, driven by a combination of conflict, climate change, and economic instability. Millions are at risk of hunger as supply chains are disrupted, leading to rising food prices. Humanitarian organizations are calling for urgent intervention to address this crisis. Reports indicate that children and vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected, facing malnutrition and health risks. Governments are urged to prioritize food security initiatives and provide assistance to those in need. As the global community grapples with this issue, collaboration is essential to ensure that aid reaches affected areas. The potential for civil unrest increases as food shortages become more pronounced. Experts warn that without immediate action, the consequences could be severe. The coming months will be critical in determining the response to this growing crisis. Water scarcity is becoming an increasingly pressing issue across the globe, threatening future sustainability. Regions facing prolonged droughts are struggling to secure adequate water supplies, impacting agriculture and daily life. Experts warn that without significant intervention, water shortages could lead to conflicts over resources. Governments are being urged to invest in water conservation technologies and infrastructure improvements to address this challenge. Education initiatives are also being implemented to promote water-saving practices among communities. As demand for freshwater rises, the need for sustainable management becomes critical. The global community must come together to tackle this challenge, ensuring that future generations have access to clean water. Collaborative efforts among nations will be essential in developing effective solutions. The next steps will involve innovative approaches to water management and policy reforms to address the growing crisis. Thank you for watching today's news roundup. Which story shocked you the most? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates.